I'm not gonna shoot the steel.
I saw it, there's no mag. It's like, all right, here we go. It's a bad start to the day.
That's how the day starts.
Still love you, buddy.
Guys, super quick interruption from the important video that you're watching, just to say thanks for watching the channel. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. If you want to really support us, the best way to do that is through 1911 Syndicate. We're actually a real estate company behind all of this weird chaos that we do. So we operate in Utah, Arizona, and different parts of Texas, Florida, California, pretty much wherever you are, just let us know. We're basically working on expanding nationwide. So if you're somewhere and you need to buy, sell a house, whatever the case may be, or just see, hey, is it even an option? Hit us up. We'll have our website linked below. You can go check in there, hit us up. We'll respond to you.
Yep.
Well, we're back again. This big bastard flew up from Arizona for this.
Do you know I get 2 seats on a plane?
You should.
Yeah.
You should.
Oh.
So what this series is on, this is probably one of the first times we've really kind of ventured into, let's make something helpful for you versus just entertain you with stupid things. We said, let's maybe try to not necessarily teach you stuff, because neither of us are instructors, so please go get that information somewhere else, but let's talk about some as some people would call mission essential, mission critical gear. So basically, this is going to be a 3-part series on slings. And basically, we've got 6 different sling well, they're not necessarily sling companies, but at the very least companies that make slings. And we're going to cover 2 different companies per episode, 3 parts over the next couple weeks. You get the gist, right? And on this week's episode, we are going to be covering Blue Force gear, which is where we're going to start. And then we're going to be moving into Haley Strategic. And I would spoil what's coming up on the other weeks, but not going to do it. Not going to do it.
Not just yet.
So let's talk a little bit about Blue Force gear. So first things first, we've said this, I'll pay him his due maybe one more time before I stop saying it at the start of videos, but to grand thumb it, we'll give you the full disclosure, if you will, of where all these different slings have come from, if we're paying for them, getting them for free, getting paid by the companies, which is, well, with one caveat, maybe a little bit on one, but we'll get to that as we go. So with Blue Force gear, they were very cool. They were nice enough to send us 2 different slings. So they sent the one that I have is a non-padded. It's going to look like on the website 221. All that is a 2-to-1, like 2-point to 1-point convertible sling. And then Chris has got
Just 2-point.
2-point but padded.
No to single point, padded. Yep.
Yep, and so no convertible 1-point on his. So we have 2 kind of slightly different things. They're both 2s. This one can go to a 1. That one's got a pad. This one doesn't. So it's a little bit of a nice mix and match there. So let's see. First things first, Blue Force gear is probably, I'd say debatably, maybe if you look at all the slings that are sold, who has the biggest market share? Certainly in the conversation,
yeah,
that Blue Force gear has maybe the biggest percentage of that, which is of course why we wanted to get it in, because a lot of people are going to either use it or want to know about it. To give you a quick demo of this, Chris's is basically identical, except it won't go to a 1-point. So really what you've got, this is the sling all the way tightened down for me. That is the adjuster. We will be showing some footage right around now so that you can see a little more up close on this. This is the adjuster that you can simply pull up on to loosen this sling up, or pull down on. Even with tension on the sling, it will pull down.
To tighten it.
To tighten it, yeah. So you're going to pull down to tighten. If you want to convert to 1-point, very simple. Both these slings are on QDs. You're just going to take that QD. Your single point attachment is going to be right there on a little sliding, the way that I have it set up, a little sliding portion.
Can you lock that down?
Here. You could. You would just have to tighten all this up. So you could cinch that down. I actually wanted a little bit of play in it.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
Well, that attachment point's kind of cool.
Yeah. And of course, given that this is on a 2-point QD, you could run this to your base plate. If you're going to run more of just straight to traditional 1-point only, then you could obviously attach it to the to your little QD base plate there. But beyond that, non-padded, Chris is padded. Pretty much beyond that, they are the same thing. But we are going to get into a little bit in the way of specs here. Okay, so first things first, convertible, non-convertible. When we say convertible, anytime in this series, you're really talking about going from a 2-point to a single point or 1-point conversion, just in case that's at all confusing.
It's okay.
You know, sometimes I have these moments on camera where, look, for those of you who criticize, you talk on camera enough. You tell me how many times you fuck up. It happens a lot. We edit most of them out. Sometimes you can't avoid it. So one thing that's pretty cool with these, which it makes sense given that Blue Force gear is a staple in the military community, is that I'm gonna read from my little cheat sheet here. So it's called Invista Solution Dyed Cadora Webbing. So basically what that means is, so this is multicam, that's just FD or Coyote, depending on, you know, how they label it. But basically what it means is the entire webbing is this color. So if you were to cut this, it's not like white throughout. The entire nylon is actually multicam. Does that really matter if it gets frayed? I don't know. You know, it's one of those like, do I really care if I see a white thread coming through? I don't know.
You'd also melt it with a lighter, so then it'd turn black, so does it really matter?
Well, what to me is more interesting about the way that it's dyed is that it's gonna be pretty low on the infrared spectrum, okay? So for guys who are actually operating and doing real things with their lives instead of what we do.
Tactical dress up.
Yeah, it's that is definitely a big point, which is, hey, look, if you're operating or whatever and someone is going to be running IR devices or nods or whatever it is, this is going to have less reflectivity on that spectrum, which nice feature. And of course, if you're in the military, that's gonna matter to you guys. Color options, we're gonna try to hit some of the same points on all these different slings. Obviously on Blue Force gear, you are gonna have multicam as an option. That is gonna be a relevant point because some of these slings, you are not gonna have multicam as an option because the nylons won't take it. Again, leading into the series, I said, we're actually gonna tell you guys interesting, useful stuff.
It's quite a bit of info.
Some nylons won't take multicam, okay? I feel like I've gotten a real like kind of nerd, low-level YouTube nerd degree on nylon and slings over the past couple months of fucking with this stuff. So one thing we'll go ahead and talk about, so the slider itself, which is the same on both these slings, is very, very good. It's definitely in the pros list for me. So the slider is very, so one, and this is gonna change a little bit sling to sling. So when you pull up, sling gets looser. When you pull down, sling's gonna get tighter. And one of the things when we were running drills in these, we're gonna have standardized drills that we run on all these slings, is if you said, hey, threat is out there, whatever the situation is, or I'm a cop and there's riots going on and I'm not trying to take my eye off of a mob of mostly peaceful protesters.
Mostly.
It's cool because look, if I've got, you know, hand on gun, if I touch my gun and just start moving my hand up, I'm going to find this, right? Like it's very intuitive. Yeah. Like you might, you know, fumble for a second and then you go, yep, there it is, right? And then you can adjust and you can start to work through your different sling. Slider's very good. I think we've both been quite happy with that.
Agreed.
So that's the slider, and the slider is really going to be a hallmark of all these slings, so it is a major point because, to be perfectly honest, even though some people are probably going to look at this company or that company and go, oh, they copied them. Honestly, look, we got to come to terms with this early on in this series. Everyone basically does a variety of the same shit. It's just the reality. There's one that I would say is the most unique, and we will cover that one as we go. But the company or person's name, I'm gonna spin it, but see if you can figure it out. Franck. If you know what sling I'm talking about in relation to Franck, then you get where I'm going with that. It's just a Euro twist, you know.
It actually took me a minute. I was like, wait, what?
Exactly. So maybe some of you guys will figure out, but it's a sling that's actually pretty unique in the list here. Snag hazards is going to be something we're going to want to talk about with all these. Very little in the way of snag hazards on this. I have not really found any real bottlenecks on that. There's no hole, even though, I mean, technically you could get a finger through this, like gear is really not going to get snagged on your slider there. I don't know that there's a perfect solution in any sling where it's completely snag free, because it's inevitable, as will happen on some of the drills that we show. If you, for me as a lefty, if you've got a pistol on your left or right side, depending on how this sling is slung, as you're getting it back around, boom, hits pistol, or even if you swing out, again, your sling might get hung on a pistol, and that's just stuff that you've got to work on. But in terms of the snag hazard, I think fairly low.
Not bad,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think we really hit any major bottlenecks there today.
Well, and that comes with, again, caveat for the whole series. My buddies always did something before they deployed called a kit shake-up. So they'd go run all the drills and everything in full kit to make sure if they got a new sling, it doesn't get snagged on something on their kit. Then they'd have to adjust accordingly. But
Yeah.
that's just something, you know, if I say gear shake-up, that's what it means, is you want to make sure it's as efficient as possible so you're not learning in the moment, oh, this actually got snagged here and
Yeah.
bad crap happened, right?
But I think in us running slings through these different drills, you go, man, we have a very minimal amount of stuff on our waistline. Obviously, we're not wearing plate carriers, chest rigs, anything like that. And it's still tough not to get snagged on things sometimes. So you're just like, man, props to dudes who operate this stuff on a day-to-day basis, and they've got on plates and all kinds of mags and meds kits on them and everything, because you're just like, dude, man, when you got to go to your back and back up and everything, it is it's not easy, and it's a lot of reps to get through that.
And an argument to that too is if you have plates and chest rig and stuff, your rifle's sitting out here instead of up to your body. So it might be a little further away from getting snagged, but then you've got radios, antennas, and all this other stuff that they use. So it's an interesting little point on how the most minimal thing, like your gun, it's gonna get hung up on if it's not set up right.
And you got to keep that in mind as you watch this whole series. Like, we have been running these as most civil, well, minus like some real tactical asshole civilians that are always running around in like full kit for, you know, do your thing. Well, I guess I do judge, but do your thing, I don't care. But we've been running pretty low profile on our gear. Let's see, moving forward, on Blue Force gear, padding is optional. That might sound like, well, yeah, of course, I have non-padded, you have padded, but some companies only offer one or the other. Non-padded, obviously pretty straightforward. It's not padded, so especially if it's just slung on your neck, you're gonna get a little uncomfortable after a while. I've liked that pad quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's thick. It's
a pretty thick pad. Yeah. And again, padding is one of those things that, depending if you are running plates or not, that's probably gonna start to dictate whether or not you want a pad on your sling. If you're running a big plate carrier, like, dude, I got plenty of pad, like I don't need a padded sling, you know, so this probably makes more sense. Civilian running around the desert, yeah, pad's gonna be nice, you know, like a little more comfortable, why not? Lifetime warranty, that's, you know, it's one of those things, sure, like, you know, it's nice to have it, you know, if a sling breaks down, like, hey, you know, send it in if you want, or buy a new sling, like that's up to you. Availability, something we'll talk about with all these, because some slings are frankly very tough to find, especially in a Corona panic, or whatever panic we're in these days, who knows. But, you know, you can order these and it's probably not gonna take 3 months to get it in, which is nice. You know what's always nice? When people show up to where you're shooting and decide they're gonna start dumping mags during your video. Good time, good time. It's not like we have endless amounts of desert in sight. You could come 100 yards within us. That's a good idea. So moving to, I would say cons, but more just like observation stuff to be aware of. I'm not going to say price is a con, because frankly, none of these slings are particularly cheap, none of them are cheap slings. You're going to run about, about $100. Okay. So if you're running a 2-point like this, or a 2-to-1 like this, you're going to run about $100. You're going to see that as a pretty common thread amongst most of the high-end slings. So before you get like, just wait for the cheap one, you get what you pay for, and $100 is about the going rate on these. One thing I will tell you in relation to the 1-point conversion. So if I was converting it to 1 point, this would not be my preference. If I was going to really run this as a 1-point sling, I would want to run from the base of my receiver. So one of my criticisms here would be that I didn't really think this entirely through. There we go. So one, I don't know if I would say criticism, would be that this QD point, the way that it sits here, has a slight tendency to want to twist up your sling. It's not a major problem. I'm nitpicking because I want to find the little bottlenecks to try to, you know, just find these things to walk you through it. Not my favorite on the 1-point conversion. Does it work? Sure. Is it my favorite? Not my favorite, okay? Another interesting point on these is my QDs are significantly smaller than ones Chris has on his 2-point, to the point where it gets a little tough, especially under stress, which we are not out here, or under gloves. A little tough to manipulate the small QD on this 2-to-1. Not so much on yours.
Not so much on this. It's about twice the size difference.
Yeah, those
and these are also yours lock into position, right? Like it just doesn't freely swivel.
Yeah, mine are locked.
Okay. Yep,
Yeah.
cool.
Yep.
Because some QDs freely swivel.
Yep.
And some QD mounts freely swivel. So.
Yep. Exactly. So small points there, but you know, stuff to keep in mind. Padding. Again, I'm finding little stuff. The padding is sewn into the sling, okay? There's a pro and a con to that. The pro would be, well, it's not going anywhere. The con would be, hey, depending on the company, was not an issue for me, but one thing you have to keep in mind with me is I'm a lefty. And most slings are really coming with a righty in mind, okay? So when a lefty gets shit, we have to flip a lot of things around typically, and sometimes that padding just does not line up. Not an issue on the Blue Force gear, so it is a pro on that. I like when the padding can be adjusted or removed, because then, hey, look, I can run the same sling padded or unpadded, depending if I'm wearing a plate carrier or something like that,
yeah.
Which is nice. That said, the padding itself is good. It lined up well for me as a lefty, so it's not a criticism of it, more just an, you know,
observation. Which, you know, kids at home, don't be left-handed. It's pretty simple.
If you have an option on how to get born, lefty would be less desirable.
Ideal.
Yeah, less ideal for sure. So let's see, and then just kind of overall thoughts, like performance in the drills. Overall thoughts on the sling, I'm actually a big fan. Blue Force gear is one of those things, I don't think I owned a Blue Force gear product prior to this. And it was one of those things where I got these in, I was like, man, these are good slings.
Yeah.
Like, these are very good slings.
I'm pleasantly surprised. You know, this is my first time really playing with one. We sell them at the shop and all that good stuff, but for right out of the box, like me just working it, I mean, it's very intuitive, like you said. Another thing that I always notice too on these is the stitching is phenomenal.
Yes.
They double bar tacked everything. Everything's double sewn, which doesn't seem like a big deal to some people, but if it's not double sewn and then bar tacked, you have a chance of it backing out.
Yeah.
And these are just really well made, high quality slings.
They're very well made. You're paying, I wouldn't say a premium, but you're paying a competitive, you know, competitive price for these in the market. But very good sling. Frankly, there's very, very little that I could find to nitpick on these. And that's always kind of fun when you're like, man, I'm trying to find stuff and I really can't find a whole lot, you know? Any other notes on these?
No, I think you covered it, man. I mean, stitching's awesome. Overall quality, like fit finish of it. I mean, it's a very nice sling.
Very nice.
My one thing is, I wonder why they went with plastic or polymer for the sliders and everything. Why didn't they do metal? Probably add weight and friction. Like, you're gonna have more friction with this than on slick metal, you know? But overall, I mean, again, there's not really anything I could say negative. I'm actually super impressed. I don't like this color.
Yeah, it's a weird combo of two colors.
Well, it's like
it's also going to be easier with some contrast to see it if it's some sort of, like, you know,
yeah,
you needed to ID it or you know, like, just
because that
spitballing.
That was tan.
Yeah, one's tan. You know, it's a little contrast so that hey, if I needed to see where is that, cool, there it is.
Agreed.
Yank.
I'm really just grasping at straws to find something bad with this sling, and I kind of can't find anything.
No. So, you know, we'll go ahead and wrap up the Blue Force section. But hey,
Cool.
look, very good slings. Very impressed. Full endorsement on our end. Knock yourself out.
I'd spend money on it. Next on the list.
I'll cue you up. Yeah, I'll cue you up. Okay, next on the list for this part one is going to be Haley Strategic. So these slings are all purchased. Not given to us, and that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. Haley always makes very thoughtful products. It's a pretty much a lock. Your Haley products are always going to be good. I will say I owned one of the Haley slings about 2 years ago, and for whatever reason, I could never quite I just never could quite get there with it. And frankly, I chalked it up to me just being a dumbass, and I was like, I guess I'm just not like bright enough to get this thing to really run right for me. And so we'll talk about my experience of it this time. But why don't you give a kind of quick rundown on that thing?
Cool thing with these, 2-to-1, so we can go 2 point here to their little proprietary 1 point. I know from talking with Travis and Nate, that was what because they announced them, and it took like a year or so to release them. People were like, why haven't you released them? It was this little piece here to go to one that they had made, and trying to get it to fit, like lock into place, one, so your QD doesn't swivel, two, to get it manufactured at a point where there's no failure points. Like you can add a lot of weight to it and beat it up and it doesn't break. That's kind of what delayed them when they originally came out.
Yep.
From what Nate told me.
Sure.
Now it's down, dirty, super easy to go from 2 to 1, super intuitive. The buttons are awesome, big buttons for the QD, which is key, especially with gloves. Your adjustment is a nice little, much like,
I don't think it's quite like any of the other
it's not like
ones.
anything else, huh, is it?
Almost imagine Blue Force gear, but with a big hole instead of sewn together.
So you can throw a finger in there, thumb, tighten it down, loosen it, all that good stuff. The difference between this is, to tighten it, we pull up. To loosen it, you push down, where the Blue Force was reversed.
And then
you push down to tighten it, pull up to loosen it.
And in my 2 cents, it feels a little more intuitive to me. Tighten versus and loosen. The Blue Force gear feels more intuitive in terms of the direction that it's moving.
And you can get more leverage on it.
Yes.
Like really cinch that down.
Yeah. So
this one takes a little bit of work, but I mean, you get there, you know. I usually pull up my rifle like this.
So I think a thing with the Haley Slings is you're dealing with a very minimalist sling. Depending on the sling that we're talking about, some are going to be a little bit more robust and some are going to be a little bit more slick. This would be definitely, for me, a minimalist oriented sling.
Yeah.
They do have a slick option. When I say a slick option, you might hear that with a couple different companies. All that means is, hey, it's open-ended. So instead of it being QDs, there's no mounting hardware, and you can pick if you want to run snap hooks or QDs, or
they have that
direct attach
corded metal thing that you can do, like some AKs, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, that's an option if you're like, oh, love the sling, hate QDs. Cool, no problem. You can work around that. Let's see here. So multicam is an option. Chris has a multicam one, and so one thing, let's just kind of go ahead and get into this, is this has been a little bit of a tough one for me. So my disclaimer to this is I'm a big Haley Strategic fan, done multiple, me and Chris actually met at a Haley Strategic course, which is just, makes you feel good.
Almost 5 years ago to the day, actually.
So, big fan. Multiple Haley Strategic products, like almost everything. For me, this sling's been a little bit of a challenge. Now, one thing, so this is actually one of Chris's slings that he let me borrow because, you know, hey, the 1911 Syndicate's got a budget, and sometimes you're like, the budget is tapped out for this session. So I borrowed one of Chris's.
I literally have 7 of those.
Yeah, so. Chris got a ton, so I'm like, give me one. Now, the material on this versus that definitely feels different. I can't tell you what the difference in the nylon is, minus this does feel a bit more slick. That's a bit more coarse. That will take multicam. I don't believe this would. One thing with the difference in material is, so for me, the slider has been problematic, okay? And I can't really explain it, okay? So I can go down easy enough, right, to loosen the sling up. Piece of cake. To get up, right, if I hook this, no matter if I go...
To tighten it, correct?
To tighten it, if I go thumb, like, it's very... Or if I go like that, it'll go. I mean, when I say I'm putting a lot of pressure compared to, like, literally, like, I mean, I have to get a leverage point to get that sling moving. In a pinch under stress, that is definitely a problem. And frankly, it's not even convenient at the range for me. It is a bit of, I've tried to come up with, like, maybe this sling is just like old and jacked up or something. I don't know. I can't come up with a solution for it. This isn't an issue for me on any of the other slings, but for me, slider's problematic. Could be a combination of the nylon. Who knows? Maybe that's why they switched, or maybe they just switched nylons because they wanted to be able to print multicam on it. Chris's, not an issue. Mine is the struggle bus, okay? So just know that for what it is. A couple other points is, so this sling, probably more than any of the other ones, is not super conducive to a lefty, okay? So you will notice right now with this thing sort of about as tight as it's gonna ever be on me, the padding really begins right there Like, you'll notice, I mean, this thing as cinched down, basically I had to take it apart and sort of redo it for a lefty configuration. There's really nowhere to put this. Now, of course, I could cut that extra nylon, right, and just burn it, so it's not gonna be an issue. It's Chris's sling, so I don't wanna burn his shit up, but I might. But so anyway, if this was mine and I was keeping it, which I might, I would have to address this, because really this is all cinched up as tight as it can be, and the pad still does not quite line up properly. Now, if I go to a single point, which for the sake of showing you this, let's just do this.
Got it.
That one. So if I run this as a single point,
You're like perfect.
no,
Oh, now it's
the pads across. That's where I would run this gun as a single point, right? I can take a shoulder, like I'm good to go. I can transition, all of that. The pad simply does not line up like that. I mean, that's where the pad is right now, right? And no offense, but my left nipple ain't need no padding, right? Like it's good to go. Tough nipples.
But what's
Tough
cool
nipples.
is you do get the dope Dragonfly logo just right there.
I can dragonfly over my heart, which a little sentimental.
Again, we like Haley, man.
Like Haley, big fan. The padding, one, a little thin for me. Again, I wouldn't call it a con, because I think you have to go into this sling knowing it's a minimalist design. You know, it's not meant to be robust, tough, yes, but not like necessarily like robust in terms of like the thickest padding and everything. But like, look, from a lefty perspective, it's a little bit of a problematic sling for me. Chris does not have these same issues, so maybe it's just lefty shit. Okay.
My one thing though is me being, you know, giant size. Slings are kind of meant for your average human being, which is what, 5'8" to 6'1", I think.
Something like that.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know. Fucking who cares?
I'm 6'4", so man, that just pulled my beard out. Oh,
Oh
that
yeah, that's a
sucked.
little cluster of
Ugh.
fur there.
But the pad does sit just right.
Yeah, so you know, I think for a righty configuration, very friendly. For a lefty, it's like I said, it's been a little bit of a challenge on that. Price is competitive with, you know, any other high-end sling. These 2-point QDs are running $89. The slick version, which is not going to have QDs, is just going to be open-ended. It's going to run $49. Then you can pick whatever mounting hardware you so desire. My plan for doing low maintenance reviews has quickly come to an end here. The padding, another note on it, it's not adjustable, it's sewn in, so hey, where it is where it is. Which could be a pro or con, depending on how you're looking at that, okay?
Fit and finish.
Kind of overall opinion now.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of hit my main point, so.
General thoughts, again, double stitch, bar tacked, everything, which again is important. If you don't know what that means, I didn't either until Travis himself explained it to me. They double stitch everything and tack it on the end so there's no unraveling. They burn it all so it's nice and slick. There's no frays or anything.
Yeah, quality of the materials and everything is very solid. You're not going to hear any nitpicking from me on that. It's more so a matter of like, it's just the slider's been a problem. The adjustability and positions of everything is a lefty. And, you know, Travis or whoever from Haley might watch this and be like, yeah, dumbass, because you don't know anything that you're doing with this. I concede that.
Concede.
Okay? For me, I fully concede that. For me, it's a sling where it's like, hey, likely will work great for you. Been a little bit of a challenge for me. Works great for Chris. So take all that with a grain of salt, you know?
Yeah, this is my go-to sling. That's why I have 7 of them.
Yeah.
You know, I have one for every rifle. This is what I run single point on my B&T as a sub gun. Nice little single point. I always wasn't able to run it over the top of the stock traditionally. I had to bring it here because that gave me 2 or 3 extra inches, again, being a bigger guy. And then also I could never fully extend this. My QD mount for this is right here on the gun instead of forward, because if I run it all the way forward, it's just simply not long enough. So not that they need to, and again, I might be a dumbass, but this is maxed out. I mean, look how much extra I have.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to go any shorter than that. If they made like a little bit longer version, it'd be
big and tall.
Yeah,
like a big and tall version would be pretty
Yeah.
cool.
But again, these need to be mass produced for your average human being. I get it, right?
Yep.
So
So
I've been a big fan of them for a long time.
yeah.
Yeah. This is my oldest one. This is the first one I bought. I mean, it looks virtually new.
Yeah.
And this has been to 30 different courses. I mean, this had the shit beat out of it, and it's still great quality product, man. So.
A point, if I was maybe nitpicking one more point, I would say, hey, look, in a perfect world, this single point conversion, the QD mount would be on both sides. Because it would be one of those things that, hey, look, no matter if I'm a righty or a lefty,
you don't got to flip anything.
I don't have to flip anything, because for this one was set up as a righty, and so I had to flip all this shit, which is, you know, why all this stuff's hanging off. So, yeah. Any other thoughts, or pretty
I think that's it.
squared away? So
that's just, you know, again, big fans of Haley. Travis has been very sweet to us. Brucey has been awesome. So, great product.
So yeah, Blue Force Gear, Haley Strategic, coming on the next episode. We've got. Not gonna tell you. Tune in next week. See you, boys and girls.
Later.